Our big focus, the US Department of State has designated the Resistance Front, TRF as many know it, behind the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack as a terrorist organization. In a statement issued by the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the statement has acknowledged the fact that the organization claimed responsibility for the 22nd April Pahalgam terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir, which claimed the lives of 26 civilians. The US therefore accorded the TRF as a foreign terrorist organization and specially designated global terrorist. Do note that the statement said that this action demonstrated the US President Donald Trump administration's commitment of countering terrorism. Washington has designated TRF as a terrorist organization, taking note of the Pahalgam terror attack in which 26 civilians lost their lives. Marco Rubio's statement acknowledges the fact that this organization claimed responsibility for the Pahalgam terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir. The US therefore accords the TRF as an FTO, which is a foreign terrorist organization, also as a specially designated global terrorist. And the statement added that Donald Trump's administration is committed to countering terrorism. We're moving on. As you know, the US had reaffirmed its strong support for India's fight against terrorism and the bilateral strategic partnership during the visit of an Indian all-party parliamentary delegation as well. As you know, Shashi Tharoor had big takeaways from that touchdown in Washington. Now, Marco Rubio has announced that the Department of State is adding the Resistance Front as a designated foreign terrorist organization. Nazir Masoodi has been tracking the latest developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Nazir, this is being seen as a major boost for India's diplomacy?
Exactly, and almost 3 months of the Pahalgam terror attack, US has finally declared the TRF organization as a global terror organization and offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba. In January 2023, India has declared this group as terrorist organization, banned organization in India. It has said, the Home Ministry that time has said this group was created, came into existence in 2019 as an offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba. They have actually started their activities and intensified their activities since 2021. The group is involved in most of the major terror attacks, including army, special forces, innocent civilians, yatris, and the latest one is Pahalgam attack. So less than 3 months after that attack, US has recognized India's concerns on terror and declared this group as a global terror organization.
Nazir, thanks so much for joining us with the lowdown. Switching tracks, amid what is seen as a push from China and Russia to revive the Russia-India-China troika, sources have said that India has not agreed to any meeting in this format. No meeting of the RIC format has been agreed to at this point in time. There are no discussions underway on its scheduling, a source has informed NDTV. But the Ministry of External Affairs remains non-committal regarding the revival of the Russia-India-China mechanism in a weekly briefing. Spokesperson Ranjit Jaiswal has actually said, and I quote, "This is a mechanism where 3 countries come together to discuss global and regional issues. When this meeting happens, we will work out a mutually convenient date and let you know." But the trilateral dialogue between Russia, India and China hope to create a trilateral Eurasian power that could balance Western dominance. The comments from India's foreign ministry comes months after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the work within the troika should be resumed. Listen in to the MEA's response.
This consultative format is a mechanism where the 3 countries come and discuss global issues and regional issues of interest to them. As to when this particular RIC format meeting is going to be held, it is something that will be worked out among the 3 countries in a mutually convenient manner, and we'll let you know if as and when that happens at an appropriate time when the meeting is to take place.
The other big story we're tracking, in a sharply worded response to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte's warning that countries like India and China could be hit very hard by secondary sanctions if they continue to do business with Russia, the Ministry of External Affairs has cautioned against double standards. Do note that India and China are the top importers of Russian crude. In fact, the MEA spokesperson at the weekly media briefing in Delhi has said, "We have seen reports on the subject and are closely following the developments." He's reiterated that securing energy needs for our people is understandably an overriding priority for us. The government has warned of double standards regarding the matter, as I mentioned. Listen in.
Regarding NATO chief's articulation, we have seen reports on the subject and are closely following the developments. Let me reiterate, and I've said this in the past as well, securing energy needs of our people is understandably an overriding priority for us. In this endeavor, we are guided by what is there on offer in the markets, as also by the prevailing global circumstances. We would particularly caution against any double standards on the matter.
Let's turn our attention now to Canada, where 2 international students from India have been sentenced to 3 years in prison and will possibly be deported after they serve the term after they killed an Indigenous man last year in a hit-and-run case in Surrey. The victim was of Cree heritage and was a 43-year-old father. Now, according to the Surrey police, Gaganpreet Singh and Jagdeep Singh were in a red Ford Mustang when they collided with the pedestrian and dragged him for over a kilometre on the 27th of January 2024. The victim was declared dead at the scene. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking the story closely. She joins us with a quick update at the moment. Maha, so 2 international students from India have now been sentenced to 3 years in prison in Canada?
That's right, Parmeshwar. 3 years in prison and being deported after that to India. They were on a student visa since 2022. And this incident took place last year when, as you pointed out, they hit the pedestrian. And more than that, it was a hit-and-run case which has landed them with a 3-year prison term and deportation. This is because, as the court observed, that it would have been an accident. This is what the prosecution said, and a tragic one. But the fact that they tried to flee, the fact that the victim was dragged for 1.3 kilometers, and one doesn't know whether he died immediately because of the hit or whether it was him being dragged by the car for over a kilometer is what caused the death. And this is what has landed them with this 3-year prison term because of their behavior after they hit the person. The decision that they took at that moment to flee rather than step out, help, and get the victim support and help at that time has led to the death of the person, an Indigenous person from the Cree community, identified as GJ on the request of his family. They didn't want his details revealed in the media. And this is what has landed them, that is Gaganpreet Singh and Jagdeep Singh, this 3-year prison term and deportation after that. Both of them are international students, both hail from India.
Thanks so much, Maha, for joining us with the latest details. Meanwhile, an Indian-Canadian gangster has been arrested in the US for running a transnational drug operation along with a notorious Irish gang, local media is reporting. The gangster, identified as Upinder Singh Sia, smuggled methamphetamine and fentanyl precursors at an international level. This is what Global News is reporting. And US court documents reveal that he was arrested in Nevada last month by the Drug Enforcement Administration. The court documents also reveal that this man, supported by Turkish and American criminal organizations, was involved in a conspiracy to import precursor chemicals from China and export narcotics through the port of Los Angeles to Australia. This is what the report has added. Meanwhile, the United States has deported 1,563 Indian nationals from the country since the 20th of Jan this year. This is what the Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed, adding that most of the deportees have been sent on commercial flights. In April, the government told the parliament that a total of 682 Indians have been deported from the US since January. But the government said that a vast majority of those deported were those who attempted to enter the United States illegally. But just listen in to what the Indian government has to say regarding over 1,500 Indians being deported from the United States.
Since 20th of January this year till yesterday, we have some 1,563 Indian nationals have been deported from the United States so far. Most of these Indian nationals have come via commercial flights. So that is the update, and we, as and when we receive list of people who are to be deported, we confirm their nationality, and once only where their nationality is confirmed, as you know, then we do the documentation part, and thereafter they are sent back to India.
Staying with updates from the United States, well, minutes after announcing that he intends to sue the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch for reporting that the unreleased Justice Department files on Jeffrey Epstein include a letter to the late sex offender from Donald Trump, the US President said that he has asked the Attorney General Pam Bondi to release a different set of documents from the investigation into Epstein. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform, "I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval." That's the key part there. Despite the fact that the grand jury testimony is a different set of documents and could include information on Epstein's victims, Trump suggested that doing so would end the controversy over his administration going back on its word to release all of the files. But by the way, most Americans think the US President Donald Trump's administration is actually hiding information about accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and give it poor marks on the issue after pledging to make public documents. In this case, this is what a Reuters Ipsos poll has found. In fact, just take a look at this data. Meanwhile, protests against President Donald Trump's immigration crackdowns and cuts to social safety nets swept across the United States, with over 1,600 events planned in public spaces, including courthouses and city streets, visuals of which are playing out on your screens at the moment. The National Day of Action, titled "Good Trouble Lives On," was organized to honor the legacy of the late Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis, who died in 2020, who was the youngest member of the Big Six civil rights leaders and famously led the 1965 Bloody Sunday March in Alabama. Reflecting on his lifetime of activism, Lewis once urged Americans to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and redeem the soul of America. But these protests, led by a coalition of advocacy groups, advocacy groups including Public Citizen, focused on Trump's controversial policies, especially his expanded deportation tactics and cuts to Medicaid and other programs. Protesters called for nonviolent demonstrations and a renewed commitment to democratic values. Let's turn our attention now to Thailand, where the disappearance of a respected monk from his Buddhist temple in central Bangkok has revealed a sex scandal that has rocked the country, with allegations of blackmail, lavish gifts, and a string of dismissals raising questions about the money and power enjoyed by the country's orange-robed clergy. Investigations into the whereabouts of senior monk Phra Thep Wajirapamok unexpectedly led police to a woman who the police suspect conducted intimate relationships with several senior monks and then blackmailed them to keep the relationships on the DL. When police searched her home this month, they found mobile phones that reportedly contained tens of thousands of compromising photos and tens of thousands of compromising videos of the missing monk and several other senior Buddhist figures. Just listen in to what the Thai police is saying regarding the matter.
ผู้หญิงคนนี้เป็นบุคคลอันตรายนะครับบุคคลอันตรายที่เราต้อง จับกลุ่มให้ได้โดยเร็วแต่ด้วยพยานหลักฐานที่เราทำเนี่ยก็เราเร่งรัดที่สุดแล้วนะครับจนมาถึงวันนี้มีการจับกลุ่ม
Meanwhile, let's get you an update from Bangladesh, where at least 14 people have been arrested following clashes in Gopalganj, which is the hometown of Bangladesh's founder, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, that left 4 people dead and prompted a curfew, according to local media. 4 people were killed in clashes over a rally organized by the National Citizen Party in Gopalganj, which turned into a virtual battlefield as hundreds of supporters of Rahman's daughter and deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina clashed with the police ahead of the planned march of the student-led party. Further news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break. The UK lowered the voting age to 16 before the next general election. The ruling Labour Party, which coincidentally performs better among young people, announced the move as part of a major shake-up of the electoral system. The most headline-grabbing shift is that 16 and 17-year-olds will be allowed to vote starting in the next general election. It must be held by August 2029, though the Prime Minister can choose to call one sooner. But the Labour Party campaigned in part on lowering the voting age last year in an election with just 59.7% turnout, the lowest since 2001. The reforms must pass Parliament to become law, which appears likely since the Labour Party has a majority in the House of Commons and the House of Lords traditionally does not block bills promised in the governing party's platform. Meanwhile, torrential rains in Pakistan's Punjab province have killed at least 63 people and injured 290 in the 24 hours since downpours started on Wednesday morning. Most of the victims were crushed by collapsing buildings, while the rest were either electrocuted or they drowned, according to the National Disaster Management Authority. Authorities in the city of Rawalpindi, next to the capital Islamabad, declared a public holiday to keep people at home, while those living near a swelling river which runs through the city have been asked to evacuate. In other news, US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky are considering a deal that involves Washington buying battlefield-tested Ukrainian drones in exchange for Kyiv purchasing weapons from the US. Zelensky has said this in an interview with the New York Post, adding that his latest talks with Trump focused on a deal that would help each country bolster its aerial tech. Meanwhile, the White House has announced that President Donald Trump has been diagnosed with a chronic but benign vein condition amid ongoing speculations over his bruised hand. The White House has said the president sought a medical examination for swollen legs, which came up with this new finding. And Canada forward Olivia Smith has become the most expensive signing in women's football history by completing a $1 million move to Arsenal from Liverpool. The 20-year-old, who made her international debut at 15, has signed a 4-year deal with the Champions League holders, and Smith's move breaks the record set by Chelsea in January when they signed USA defender Naomi Girma for $900,000 from San Diego Wave. Slipping into a quick break, back in a moment with the latest. Do stay tuned.